When the massive Talon warships appeared in Earth's orbit, nobody knew what to make of them. They just showed up one day, 7 enormous vessels that looked like polished obsidian, each one bigger than the largest aircraft carrier ever built. For 3 days they did nothing but hover silently, causing worldwide panic and confusion. On the 4th day they finally made contact. The message came simultaneously to every screen on Earth, from smartphones to billboards. A tall, slender figure with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to change color appeared. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English, "I am Commander Rock of the Talon Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. Your options are simple: surrender and serve, or resist and perish." Most world leaders wanted to surrender immediately. What choice did they have? Earth's military technology looked like children's toys compared to what the scans showed of the Talon ships. General Park stood alone in the emergency United Nations session. At 52, she had spent her entire career preparing for threats no one else took seriously. "We cannot give up without trying," she argued, pounding her fist on the table. 10 billion lives depend on our decision today." The room fell silent as security footage played on the main screen. A Talon scout ship had landed in rural Japan, and when local police approached, they were simply gone, vaporized without a trace. "They're at least 200 years ahead of us. Technologically," Park continued. "But so were the British compared to colonial forces. So were many armies throughout history who still lost to determined defenders who knew the land and refused to give up." President Wu of the Asian Coalition shook his head. "And what exactly do you propose, General? That we fight with sticks against their lasers?" Park took a deep breath. "I propose we buy time. We pretend to negotiate surrender terms while secretly preparing for resistance. We've observed something strange. Their ships emit unusual energy patterns when they communicate. My science team needs time to study this." "How much time?" asked Chancellor Ito. 2 weeks. Give me 2 weeks before we surrender." The vote was close, 27 to 25 in favor of Park's plan. Earth would appear to cooperate while secretly preparing for what seemed like an impossible fight. The negotiations were held in a hastily constructed facility in Geneva. The human delegation, led by Ambassador Lee, found the Talons arrogant and dismissive. Commander Rock barely bothered to hide his contempt. "Your species is barely worth conquering," he told Lee during their 3rd meeting. "But your planet's resources are valuable, and your people will make adequate laborers in our mining operations." Lee maintained a respectful facade while secretly recording everything about the aliens, their movements, speech patterns, technology. Every night, he transmitted his observations to General Park's hidden command center beneath the Korean mountains. Meanwhile, Dr. Kim and his team worked around the clock in an abandoned subway station under Toronto. They had noticed something fascinating. Whenever Talon technology activated near humans, there was a split-second delay, a tiny glitch in performance. "It's like our brainwaves create interference," Dr. Kim explained to his bleary-eyed team on the 10th day. "Their technology somehow operates on quantum frequencies that human neural activity disrupts." That night they tested their theory. Using modified EEG equipment, they amplified human brainwave patterns and directed them at a small piece of Talon technology that had been secretly recovered from the Geneva facility. The alien device, a simple communication tool, sputtered and went dark. Kim immediately called General Park. "It works," he said, his voice trembling with excitement. "We can jam their tech with amplified human brainwaves. The effect is temporary and limited in range, but it's something." "Can you make it bigger, more powerful?" Park asked. "With time and resources, yes. We can build what I'm calling wave jammers. Simple devices that can be mass-produced in existing factories." For the first time since the ships appeared, Park felt a flicker of hope. "How soon?" "We have a prototype now, crude but functional. 3 days for the first batch of improved models." While Kim's team worked, General Park secretly mobilized Earth's forces. Fighter pilots were briefed in small groups, soldiers were equipped with modified gear, and strategic resources were hidden away from major cities. The Talons, meanwhile, grew increasingly frustrated with human negotiation tactics. Ambassador Lee kept introducing new issues, requesting clarifications, and insisting on detailed explanations of what life under Talon rule would entail. "You test my patience," Commander Rock finally snapped on day 13. "Your delays suggest you are planning something foolish." Lee smiled politely. "We simply want to ensure a smooth transition for our people. Change is difficult for humans." That night, the first shipment of wave jammers was distributed to military bases around the world. They didn't look impressive, just small metal boxes with an antenna and simple controls, but they represented humanity's only hope. "Remember," General Park told her officers in a secured video call, "we only get one chance at surprise. Once they understand what we're doing, they'll adapt. Make the first strike count." The Talons, growing impatient, set a deadline. Earth would formally surrender in 48 hours or face immediate consequences. Little did they know, humans were finally ready to show that they wouldn't surrender their home without a fight. Against all odds, a plan was in place that might just give humanity a fighting chance against the vast galactic empire that had never known defeat. Dr. Kim and his team worked around the clock in the abandoned subway station beneath Toronto. The place was a mess. Old equipment piled in corners, makeshift workbenches constructed from subway doors, and the constant drip of water from the ceiling that nobody had time to fix. But nobody complained. They were too focused on what might be humanity's only chance against the Talons. "Pass me that frequency modulator," Dr. Kim said, not looking up from the device he was tinkering with. His assistant handed him a small metal box with wires sticking out of it. 5 days had passed since negotiations began, and the team had made an accidental discovery that seemed almost too good to be true. Every time someone walked too close to the small piece of Talon technology they'd managed to secretly acquire, the alien device would glitch momentarily. "It doesn't make sense," Dr. Kim muttered to himself as he connected another wire. "Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. How could human brainwaves possibly interfere with it?" His assistant, Yun, who hadn't slept in nearly 30 hours, looked up from her computer. "What if they never encountered humans before? What if there's something unique about our neural patterns?" Kim paused, considering this. Different species, different brain structures. It's possible they've never had to account for our specific frequency range. The team had spent days measuring and recording human brainwave patterns, trying to isolate exactly what was causing the interference. They discovered that certain frequencies, particularly those produced during states of intense concentration or fear, seemed to cause the strongest reaction in the alien tech. "It's like trying to play two musical notes that are almost the same," Kim explained during their nightly briefing with General Park. "They create a dissonance, a beat frequency, that disrupts the operation." Park wasn't a scientist, but she understood the implications immediately. "Can we amplify this effect? Make it strong enough to disable their weapons?" "That's what we're working on now," Kim said, holding up what looked like a clunky metal headband with wires connecting to a small box. "This prototype captures and amplifies human brainwave patterns. The range is limited, maybe 3 meters, but it works. Their tech simply freezes." The general's normally stern face broke into a smile. "How quickly can you make more of these?" "That's the beauty of it," Kim said, unable to hide his excitement. "The components are simple. With the right factories, we could make thousands in days. Within 48 hours, production lines in hidden facilities across the globe were retooled to manufacture what they were now calling wave jammers. Car factories in Detroit, electronics plants in Taiwan, and appliance manufacturers in Germany all secretly began producing components that were assembled into devices that looked like nothing more than bulky walkie-talkies with strange antennas. Meanwhile, Ambassador Lee continued the delicate dance of negotiations with Commander Rock. The Talon grew increasingly frustrated with human delays and excuses. "Your species tests my patience," Rock said during their 7th meeting. His skin seemed to pulse with a deeper blue when he was annoyed. "We have conquered worlds far more advanced than yours in days. We simply want to ensure we understand what life under Talon rule will entail," Lee replied calmly. "Our people are anxious. Change frightens us." What Lee didn't say was that the first batch of wave jammers had been delivered to military bases around the world. Fighter pilots were secretly training with them, learning how to approach Talon ships while carrying the devices. In his hidden command center, General Park watched as the first test was conducted. A small team approached one of the Talon scout ships that had landed in a remote area of Australia. As they got within range, their wave jammers activated. The ship's shimmering force field flickered and died. The small hatch that had been sealed tight suddenly popped open. The team retreated without being detected, but the implications were enormous. Their technology worked. "We need more time," Park told Ambassador Lee over a secure line. "3 more days, keep them talking." Lee nodded grimly. "I'll do my best, but they're running out of patience. Rock has demanded a formal surrender ceremony in 72 hours. As Lee returned to negotiations, Dr. Kim made another breakthrough. By analyzing the recovered piece of Talon technology, his team discovered that they could not only jam the alien tech, but potentially interface with it. Their ships, their weapons, they're all connected through a sort of neural network, Kim explained to Park. If we can access one system, we might be able to disable others. It was a long shot, but it gave them something they hadn't had before, a plan of attack. If human pilots could get close enough to the Talon ships with the wave jammers, they might be able to do more than just temporarily disable them. They might be able to take control. As the deadline for surrender approached, Earth's forces prepared in secret. Wave jammers were distributed to military units worldwide. Pilots practiced approaches that would bring them within range of the massive Talon warships. Scientists worked frantically to improve the range and power of the devices. Nobody knew if it would be enough. The Talons had conquered hundreds of worlds, many far more advanced than Earth, but they had never encountered humans before, never had to deal with the peculiar frequency of human brainwaves that, by sheer biological coincidence, interfered with their technology. It wasn't much of an advantage, but it was the only one they had. And in 3 days, they would find out if humanity's hidden advantage was enough to give them a fighting chance against an empire that spanned the stars. The Talons had set a deadline. Earth would formally surrender in 24 hours or face immediate consequences. As dawn broke over the major cities of the world, an eerie calm settled across the planet. Most civilians had no idea what was about to happen. They only knew that strange alien ships had appeared and that world leaders were in negotiations in Niue. Bunkers and bases around the globe, pilots and soldiers prepared for humanity's first and possibly last stand against the Galactic Empire. The wave jammers, small metal boxes with antennas that looked almost laughably simple, had been distributed to key military units worldwide. "Remember, you need to get within 50 meters for these to work effectively," General Park told the assembled fighter pilots via secure video link. Her face was drawn from lack of sleep, but her eyes burned with determination. "The jammers will only disable their systems for about 30 seconds before they adapt. Make those seconds count." Lieutenant Cho, a fighter pilot with the Korean Air Force, looked down at the device strapped to his leg. It seemed impossible that this little box could do anything against the massive alien warships hovering above Earth's major cities. But he'd seen the test footage, seen Talon technology sputter and go dark when the jammers were activated. "What if they expect this?" one of the American pilots asked. "What if they're ready for us?" "They won't be," General Park said firmly. "Their arrogance is our advantage. Commander Rock has made it clear in every negotiation that he considers humans primitive and barely worth conquering. They won't expect any resistance, let alone effective resistance." As the briefing ended, Lieutenant Cho pulled a photo from his pocket, his wife and daughter smiling at a beach. He tucked it back into his flight suit and zipped it up. Today, he wasn't just flying for his country. He was flying for all of humanity. Across the Atlantic, Dr. Kim and his team were making last-minute adjustments to the command center's systems. They had discovered that if they could get one of the wave jammers actually inside a Talon ship, they might be able to hack into the aliens' neural network, the system that connected all their technology. "It's a long shot," Kim admitted to his exhausted team. "But if it works, we might be able to do more than just temporarily disable their systems. We might be able to take control of them." Meanwhile, in Geneva, Ambassador Lee was meeting with Commander Rock for what was supposed to be the final negotiation before Earth's surrender. The Talon's blue skin seemed to glow with satisfaction. "Your resistance was pointless. but I admire your attempt at diplomacy, Rock said, his thin lips barely moving as he spoke. Most species simply panic when we arrive. Lee nodded respectfully. We're a young species, but we learn quickly. Rock had no idea how true that statement was. At exactly 0900 GMT, fighter jets from every major military power on Earth launched simultaneously. The plan was simple but daring. Approach the Talon ships, activate the wave jammers when in range and see what happened. Lieutenant Cho felt his heart hammering as his fighter approached the massive alien vessel hovering over Seoul. The thing was enormous, at least a kilometer long, with a surface that seemed to shimmer like oil on water. Remember, they won't expect us to attack, his squadron leader's voice crackled over the radio. Use that surprise. Get in close before activating. Your jammer. As the fighters approached the alien ships worldwide, something unexpected happened. Nothing. The Talons, so confident in their superior technology, had no defensive systems activated. They weren't expecting any resistance, let alone an attack. Lieutenant Cho's fighter screamed toward the underbelly of the massive ship. When he was less than 50 meters away, he hit the activation switch on the wave jammer. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then, like a light bulb burning out, the shimmering field around the Talon ship flickered and died. Small hatches that had been sealed tight suddenly popped open. Lights along the hull went dark. "It's working," Cho shouted into his radio. "The jammers are working!" Similar reports flooded in from around the world. The wave jammers were having an even stronger effect than anticipated. Not only were the Talons' defensive systems failing, but their ships seemed to be experiencing total system failures. In Geneva, Commander Rock was in the middle of explaining how Earth would be divided into mining sectors when his communication device suddenly went dark. His eyes widened in confusion, then alarm as the building's lights flickered. "What is happening?" he demanded, his usual composure cracking. Ambassador Lee simply smiled. "As I said, we learn quickly." The real surprise came 10 minutes into the attack. A team of specially trained soldiers, equipped with wave jammers, managed to board one of the disabled Talon ships hovering over Tokyo. They found the alien crew disoriented and helpless, without their technology. One soldier, carrying a modified wave jammer that Dr. Kim's team had specially prepared, found what appeared to be the ship's control center. Following the scientist's instructions, he connected the device to what looked like an input terminal. Back in Toronto, Dr. Kim watched as his screen suddenly filled with alien symbols and diagrams. "We're in," he whispered, hardly believing it. "We're actually in their system." The information flooding in was overwhelming. Schematics, navigational data, communications logs. But most importantly, they now had access to the Talon's neural network, the system that connected all their technology. Within hours, humans had captured 3 Talon capital ships and were learning how to control them. The aliens, so dependent on their advanced technology, were completely unprepared when that technology failed. Commander Rock, forced to watch as his invasion force was systematically disabled, couldn't comprehend what was happening. "This is impossible," he kept repeating. "Your species is primitive. You have barely achieved spaceflight." "Perhaps," Ambassador Lee replied calmly, "you should have studied us more carefully before you decided to invade." By evening, the situation had transformed completely. The Talon forces were in disarray, their ships disabled or captured, their ground forces cut off from their command structure. For the first time in the Empire's history, they were facing not just resistance, but defeat. In his hidden command center, General Park allowed herself a small smile as reports of successes continued to pour in. They had a long way to go. The Talon Empire spanned hundreds of worlds, but Earth had just won its first battle. And across the planet, as news spread of humanity's unexpected victory, people looked up at the now dark alien ships with something they hadn't felt since the invasion began. Hope. News of Earth's unexpected victory spread quickly across the galaxy. The Talon Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds over thousands of years, and never before had any species successfully resisted them, let alone captured their ships. The fact that humans, a species that had barely achieved spaceflight, had done so was nothing short of revolutionary. Major Choi stood on the bridge of the captured Talon warship, still not quite believing what had happened. Just 2 weeks. Ergo, she had been a regular Air Force officer. Now she was commanding an alien vessel larger than an aircraft carrier. Status report, she called to her makeshift crew, a mix of pilots, engineers, and scientists who were learning the ship's systems on the fly. "We've got basic navigation and life support figured out," replied Lieutenant Jin, who had been an aerospace engineer before the invasion. "Weapons systems are still offline, but we're making progress. The wave jammers let us access their computers, but understanding their language is the real challenge." Dr. Kim's team had made remarkable progress translating the Talon computer systems. They discovered that the aliens' neural network extended far beyond Earth. It connected their entire empire through what appeared to be some form of faster-than-light communication. "It's like they've built an entire civilization dependent on this technology," Dr. Kim explained during a briefing with military leaders from around the world. "And they never considered that another species might disrupt it." The most startling discovery came 3 weeks after the initial victory. By accessing the Talon network, Earth's scientists found messages from other conquered worlds. The Draxians, a species from a planet about 40 light-years from Earth, had heard about the human resistance and were desperately seeking contact. "They've been under Talon control for 15 years, Dr. Kim translated. "They want to know how we defeated them." General Park saw an opportunity. "If we can spread the wave jammer technology to other conquered species, we could create a galaxy-wide resistance." But there was a problem. Earth had no way to reach the Draxian homeworld. Their own space program could barely reach Mars. "Actually," Dr. Kim said, a slow smile spreading across his face, "we do have a way now." He pointed to the screens, showing the 3 captured Talon warships hovering in Earth orbit. 2 days later, Major Choi found herself preparing for humanity's first interstellar journey. The captured Talon ship, now renamed Hope, had been loaded with wave jammers and a small team of soldiers, scientists, and diplomats. "We're really doing this," she said quietly as she looked out at the stars from the ship's bridge. "We're actually going to another solar system." The journey to the Draxian homeworld took only 4 days using the Talon ship's drive system, a technology that humans were only beginning to understand. When they arrived, they found a planet under heavy Talon occupation with massive mining operations stripping the world of resources. Keeping their distance to avoid detection, Choi's team made contact with the Draxian resistance, a small group hiding in the planet's dense forests. Using the communication protocols they'd discovered in the Talon network, they arranged a secret landing. The Draxians were not what anyone expected. Standing nearly 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin that changed color like a chameleon, they looked fearsome. But their eyes, large, expressive, and filled with a profound sadness, told a different story. "We thought we were alone in our suffering," said Krell, the leader of the Draxian resistance, after the humans explained why they had come. "For 15 years, we have fought and died with no hope of victory." Major Choi handed him one of the wave jammers. "This changed everything for us. It might do the same for you." The effect of the wave jammers on the Draxian planet was even more dramatic than it had been on Earth. Within days, the local Talon forces were in complete disarray. The Draxians, who had been fighting a losing guerrilla war for years, suddenly found themselves able to disable Talon technology with ease. "It's not just the technology," Krell explained to Choi as they watched Draxians taking control of a Talon mining facility. "It's the hope you've given us. For the first time since they came, we believe we can be free." But the Empire was not going to accept these defeats without a response. As reports of rebellions on Earth and Draxia reached the Talon homeworld, Emperor Nock, who had ruled for over 1,000 years, personally took command of the response. "These primitives have gotten lucky," he told his high command. "But luck is not strategy. Prepare the planet killer vessels." The planet killers were the Empire's ultimate weapons, massive ships capable of rendering a world uninhabitable. They had been used only twice in the Empire's history, against species that had proven particularly troublesome. On Earth, the warning came from an unexpected source. The Talon neural network that Dr. Kim's team had tapped into suddenly lit up, with new commands and deployments. "They're sending their biggest ships," Kim reported grimly to General Park. According to these specifications, they could literally boil away our oceans. Park's face remained calm, though her eyes betrayed her concern. How long do we have? 2 weeks, maybe less, before they arrive. Earth had been preparing for a counterattack. Manufacturing facilities around the world had been producing wave jammers non-stop. Military personnel had been training to use captured Talon technology. But facing planet killers was something else entirely. "We need to warn the Draxians," Park said, "and we need a new plan." That's when Lieutenant Jin spoke up. He had been studying the Talon ship's propulsion systems. "What if we don't wait for them to come to us? What if we take the fight to them?" His idea was audacious. Use the captured Talon ships to create a small fleet, equip them with wave jammers, and launch a preemptive strike against the approaching planet killers. Major Choi, who had just returned from Draxia, volunteered to lead the mission. "The Draxians want to join us. They've captured 6 ships of their own." As word spread of the coming Talon counterattack, something remarkable happened. Messages began arriving through the neural network from other conquered worlds. The Valerians, the Thos, the Quipt, species that humans had never heard of, were reaching out, asking about the wave jammers, offering to join the fight. What had begun as Earth's desperate attempt to avoid conquest was turning into a galaxy-wide revolution against an empire that had stood for millennia. Standing on the bridge of the Hope, once more Major Choi looked at her crew, now a mix of humans and Draxians preparing for the most important mission in both their species' histories. "No pressure," she said with a wry smile. "But what we do in the next few days might change the fate of the entire galaxy." The resistance that had begun on Earth was spreading, and the Talon Empire, for the first time in its long history, was facing a threat it never expected and didn't know how to counter: unity among its victims. 3 years had passed since the Talon ships first appeared in Earth's skies, and nobody could have predicted where humanity would find itself now. Major Choi stood at the large window of the space station, orbiting a neutral world called Nexus, watching ships from a dozen different species dock and depart. Some were massive like the Draxian cruisers, while others were small and sleek like the Valerian scouts. All of them had one thing in common: they were free from Talon control. "Still hard to believe, isn't it?" General Park said, joining her. At the window, the general had more gray hair now, and a thin scar ran along her left cheek from a close call during the Battle of Saturn's Rings, but her eyes still held the same determination. "Sometimes I wake up thinking it was all a dream," Choi admitted, "that I'll open my eyes and find those ships still hovering over our cities." Instead, humans were now part of something much bigger. The combined fleet of former Talon subjects had changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The turning point had come during the face-off with the Talon planet killers. Everyone had expected a devastating battle, but something unexpected happened instead. When the human-led fleet approached the massive Talon vessels with their wave jammers active, half of the Talon crews mutinied. It turned out that many of the Empire's own citizens had grown tired of Emperor Nock's harsh rule. "The wave jammers were the key," Dr. Kim had explained during the debriefing. "They didn't just disrupt their technology. They disrupted the control systems that Emperor Nock used to monitor his own people. When those went down, many Talons saw their chance for freedom. The ensuing battle had still been fierce, but with Talon fighting Talon, the Rebel Alliance gained the advantage. 3 of the 5 planet killers were captured intact, and the other 2 retreated into deep space. After that victory, the rebellion spread like wildfire across the Empire. World after world rose up, using the wave jammer technology that humans had discovered. Species that had been subjugated for centuries suddenly found themselves with the power to resist. Now, 3 years later, representatives from 27 formerly conquered worlds were gathering on Nexus for a historic meeting, the formation of the Galactic Alliance. "It's time," Park said, checking her watch. "They're waiting for us in the main chamber." As they walked through the station's corridors, Choi marveled at the diversity around them. Tall four-armed Draxians conversed with the crystalline Valerians. The cloud-like Thos floated alongside the reptilian Quipt, and everywhere humans worked and talked with these alien species as equals. The main chamber was a large, circular room with seating arranged in concentric rings. At the center was a round table where the main representatives would sit. General Park took her place as Earth's representative, while Choi stood behind her as advisor. The last to enter was Emperor Nock himself, though Emperor was now just a courtesy title. The once mighty ruler of the Talon Empire looked diminished. Somehow his blue skin paler than it once was, his posture less commanding. He was accompanied by Talon rebels, who had helped overthrow his rule on their homeworld. "Let us begin," said Krell, the Draxian who had first helped spread the wave jammer technology beyond Earth. "We gather today to formalize what we have been, building for 3 years, a new order based on cooperation rather than conquest." The discussions that followed were complex, with each species bringing their own concerns and hopes to the table. Some, like the Quipt, wanted guarantees of military protection. Others, like the Valerians, were more concerned with fair trade agreements. The Thors were focused on cultural exchange, while the remaining loyal Talons, now a minority faction, worried about retribution. Throughout it all, Park listened more than she spoke. When she finally addressed the gathering, her words were simple but powerful. 3 years ago, my species had never met anyone from beyond our world. We were alone, or so we thought. Then the ships came, and we faced extinction. What saved us wasn't our technology or our military might. It was our stubbornness, our refusal to give up even when victory seemed impossible. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes, or eye equivalents, of each representative. That's what we can offer. This alliance, not the most advanced science, not the largest fleet, but a reminder that the size of the fight in the heart matters more than the size of the heart in the fight. The chamber erupted in the various sounds that constituted applause among the different species. As the formal document establishing the Terran alliance was prepared, Choi found herself standing near Emperor Nock. The fallen ruler looked at her with those strange, color-shifting eyes. "You must be very proud," he said, his voice lacking the arrogance it once held. "Your species accomplished in 3 years what none other could in thousands." Choi considered this. "I think we just had the advantage of fresh eyes. When you've been doing things one way for so long, it's hard to see alternatives." Nock nodded slowly. "A lesson my people have learned at great cost." He paused. "Do you know what the most surprising thing was about humans? Not your resistance. All species fight when cornered. It was what came after." "What do you mean?" "When you gained the advantage, you didn't destroy us. You didn't seek revenge. You offered partnership." His eyes shifted to a deep purple color. "In 10,000 years of conquest, we never considered that possibility." Later that evening, as the newly formed alliance celebrated with a feast featuring foods from all member worlds, Choi found herself sitting with a young Draxian who had been just a child when humans first arrived on his world. "Is it true," he asked, his color-changing skin rippling with curiosity, "that humans didn't even have faster-than-light travel when the Tylons came?" Choi laughed. "It's true. We were still excited about reaching our own moon." The young Draxians' skin turned a bright yellow, their equivalent of amazement. "Then how did you know you could win?" "We didn't," Choi said simply. "We just knew we had to try." As she looked around at the gathering, dozens of species that had once been enemies or strangers now breaking bread together, she thought about how far they'd all come. From a desperate last stand against alien invaders to the founding of a new galactic order based on cooperation rather than conquest. Dr. Kim, who had recently been appointed head of the new interspecies technology exchange, joined them at the table. "I just received word from Earth. They've successfully integrated Talon crystal technology with our quantum computers. We're looking at computing power that would have been unimaginable 4 years ago. And the Draxians have begun teaching us about their bioengineering," Choi added. "They think they can help us solve several major diseases within a decade." This was the true victory, not just survival, but the beginning of something entirely new. A galaxy where different species shared their knowledge and strengths, rather than conquering or fearing one another. Nobody had expected the humans to win against the Galactic Empire, but in the end, they did something even more surprising. They helped create a peace that might last longer than the Empire ever did.